Good morning. Welcome to our daily devotion. It is Wednesday, November 3rd. For those of you that are watching this clip here on my I forget what it's called now, the page. Make sure you look for the complete video so you can watch a complete my story. It's my story that you can go to the videos and watch a complete video. Important message this morning. We're looking at Bible words. We had a great night last night with Impact. Everybody shows up. It just amazes me week after week. Had a great time with them. The word we're looking at this morning is covet. What does that mean, to covet? It's a strong desire to obtain or possess something or someone. Want to take something for yourself, especially that's not yours. The biggest example of this is the last two commandments that God gave. Listen to this in Exodus 20. It says, "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant or maidservant, his ox or donkey, or anything belongs to your neighbor. You shall not covet. You shall not look at that and say and wish that you had that." It's God's commandment. God is literally telling us just to be satisfied with what we have. Don't be looking over the fence all the time, wishing that you had what your neighbor has. Be satisfied with what you have. And this is with everything. Here's an important one here in Proverbs. I know that it's to the point, okay? Listen to this. "May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. A loving dove, a graceful deer, may her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be captivated by her love. Why be captivated, my son, by an adulteress? Why embrace the bosom of another man's wife?" Question mark. Hear what God is saying? Be satisfied with your spouse. Most divorces happen when we start to covet, when you start to look at somebody else that's not yours. That's when divorces happen. Coveting is a strong sin because it leads to other sins. God says, be satisfied. Be satisfied with your spouse. Don't let your eyes wander. In First Timothy 6:6-10. Or wait, before I do that, in Job 31:1, I know I read this to you here the other day, but maybe it'll make a little more sense to you. It says, Job says, "I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a girl." Remember I shared this yesterday? Made a covenant with the Lord not to lust with his eyes at another person. Why? Because that lusting with your eyes leads to coveting, and then coveting leads to the sin, which leads many times to divorce. You see how it's just one after another after another? And then in 1 Timothy, God tells us this. 1 Timothy 6:6-10 says this, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that." People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. When you desire money, when you strive to get it, you're willing to cheat, you're willing to lie, you're willing to steal, you're willing to step on other people, you're willing to take advantage of other people, the very opposite of what God tells us to do. God says, put the needs of others in front of your own needs, which being like Christ-like. When you're greedy for money, you do the opposite. You take advantage of people. You use other people. You cheat them. Love of money is a terrible thing. God is saying with you, be satisfied with what you have. Listen to this in Ecclesiastes 5:10. It says this, whoever loves money never has money enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. You look at wealthy people, they just covet more and more and more. They just want more and more and more. They're never satisfied. And then in Philippians 4:11 through 13, God tells us this. This is Paul saying, I am not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it's like to be in need, and I know what it's like to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through him who gives me strength. Be content to what you have. Coveting is a dangerous sin because it leads to so many other sins. It can lead to adultery. It can lead to stealing. It can lead to cheating. It can lead to lust. It could go on and on and on. Don't covet. Don't look at somebody else's and wanting it so badly that you go after it. Channel 7, David Muir visited Madagascar. And what I saw was so sad. Children literally starving to death. You could see it in their faces. You could see it in their eyes. And it was pitiful. It was pitiful to see these young children, innocent young children, literally starving to death. It's like, if more people could have compassion, there doesn't have to be starving people in the world. Countries with so much are capable of taking care of them. In Afghanistan, you probably saw this, a couple sold their 9-year-old daughter, to a 55-year-old man so they would have food to eat for the rest of their family. This is just sad, people. We live in a world like this, where little innocent children literally starve to death, where people literally sell their children. I can remember a pastor that I sat under a while ago, a few years ago, that went to India many times, and they dug a water well, and they were blessing the water well, and the people from that village were right there. And in India, if you're not in that village, you have to stay outside of it. As they were blessing the water well, he saw this gentleman kept waving at him. And he was standing next to his wife with 2 little children that were hugging them. And he just kept waving at him. And finally, Dave turned to the India pastor and said, what does that gentleman want over there? And the pastor, just ignore him. He wants to give you his children because he knows that they have a chance in America. Willing to give the children away just so that you see that at the border. You see that at the border where these young children are coming here to the United States looking to get away from a country where their life is threatened, where they don't have enough to eat. This is sad. And here we are in America coveting more. I bet you're guilty of that. I'm guilty of this. Not satisfied with wishing we had something more. You see someone with a nicer vehicle and you covet and wish that you had that nice vehicle. See someone with a nicer home and you covet that, wishing that you had that home. You see famous people that have these mansions. There's just the 2 of them, or maybe they have 1 child and they live in this mansion that's got like 20,000 square feet. It's like, do they need that? I pity billionaires and now trillionaires that hoard their wealth and have little or no concern for the poor and the needy. I pity them. Because look what waits for them in the next life. Look what waits for them. What did we just say? You can't take it with you. You brought nothing into the world, we just read, and you can take nothing out of the world. And they die with their billions and millions and trillions. Ooh, what waits for them? What waits for them? Now everything's relevant. So we can point at the millionaires and the billionaires and now trillionaires, but the finger can come right back at us. Those of you in collision, how are you willing to give when we have the special offerings for the homeless, for the poor in India? How much compassion do you have for that? Enough to give? You say, well, I don't have hardly anything. To give $1? To give your change? Everything is relevant. Remember the widow lady that just gave 2 pennies, and Jesus says she gave more than all the rest because she gave of what little she had? How much compassion do you have, or are you still coveting, still looking at what somebody else has, wanting it, and maybe sinning to get it? Think about this. Think about this, okay? Amen. Hey, tonight is Crash. I hope everyone shows up again as like they did last week. And for the rest of you, I'll see you again tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. God bless you all. Have a great, great morning.